showing you all how to make some, first I'm going to be showing you how to heat form and mold using an oven, but that's also going to play right into making some awesome EVA foam abdominal muscles and chest muscles for superheroes, armored characters, any sort of thing like that. So the one I have here is my Batman armor, and this one is, that's not the one I'm going to be working on today. This is just an example. I'm going to be working on Wolverine, and his armor is very similar to this. So I'm going to show you guys how to make yourself some EVA foam armor using an oven to heat form. Now, some of the items that you're going to need for a build like this is obviously your EVA foam, some cutting tools like your trusty dusty tin snips, a tape measure to get some measurements of yourself, and obviously your adhesives so that you can, connect all the armor parts. Today I'm going to be using mostly contact cement, which I keep in a bottle because it's much simpler to apply contact cement when you have it in a bottle, and then you spread it with a scrap piece of EVA foam. So let's go ahead and get into it, shall we? So I'm going to go ahead and use this EVA foam Batman chest plate that I already made, and I'm going to use it to get some measurements of myself. I already have my templates drawn, but I want to show you guys how I go about getting the measurements. When you make these armor pieces, especially the chest plates, you want to be able to bend your arms inward, obviously, because you're going to be reaching for stuff and you're going to be doing superhero poses. So you don't want your chest piece to be too wide at the top, because then you won't be able to move your arms inward. So whenever you're measuring, I like to do everything in halves. So I will start at the center of my chest with my tape measure, and I will do a rough measurement. Okay. To where my arm, so I will hold in the center of my chest, and then use my middle finger to hold where that crease is on the inside of my arm, where my arm bends inward. The EVA foam has a little bit of flexibility to it, so that'll allow it to, if it's, the end of your EVA foam chest plate is touching that crease, it'll bend inward just a little bit, so I have a little bit of flexibility in there. So use that measurement, and it's looking like it's about 8.5, or about 8 inches, 8 to 8.5 inches. So that is how the half of my chest plate, how big it's going to be. So obviously I'm going to draw my template based on those measurements. And then I also want to measure from my collarbone, the center of my collarbone, all the way down to the right below my belly button. Now, this may be a little bit different for females, but it's basically where my pants, where the elastic of my pants is. So that'll give me how long I want this chest piece and abs to be. Let's see how it is. Okay, cool. So that's about 17 and a half inches. Now the cool thing about this, when making these pieces, when you're measuring, you can give yourself a little leeway because you can adjust it as you do your test fitting. The cool thing about these chest plates, what I like to do is I make them in 2 different parts, so that way they're flexible. So my chest here detaches from the abs. So there's Velcro on the bottom and it attaches at the top of the abs. You don't have to do that. I'm not going to be doing that for the Wolverine, but that gives it a little bit more flexibility if that's what you want. So let me show you the template that I've already drawn. So here are my templates. My first suggestion for you all is if you're going to be drawing templates, the best way to go is get yourself a giant writing tablet like this. This is one that I found at the teacher store because I'm studying to become a teacher and all. It's a easel pad and it's got grids on it, so each one is an inch. it's 1 square inch, the grid on here, so I know what my measurement's going to be, and it helps me size my templates and stuff a whole lot easier. And it's 27 inches by 34 inches, and you know, I can get some really big templates on here. So starting off, here is the Wolverine templates that I made a couple months ago. You can see it's been kind of roughed up because it's the first page on this easel. So I drew the chest plate first, just like I did with my Batman, and then down from there I used my measurements for length to get how long I wanted the abdominal section to be. Now, using, you know, reference, like anatomical reference, I was able to make, you know, what I wanted the ab pieces to look like. And for my new one, I'm going to make this bottom ab piece a little bit longer because I want this to come all the way down past my belly button. This current template right here is a little short, and it sits probably around my belly button or above it. So I'm going to make it a little bit longer. Now, this is the cool part here. This side piece here, it creates the ribs of the armor. And the cool thing about the Wolverine armor is that it doesn't require any sort of ribbing like my Batman armor does that goes around my back. This just sits right over my chest and my ribs, and sits as just a front chest plate sort of thing. So I'll show, as I build it, I'll be able to show you guys what I mean by that. So let's go ahead and start transferring this over to foam. All right, so we're ready to transfer this over to foam. So what we're gonna do first, I already have my templates ready to go. I like to save my masters, so I'm not gonna destroy the original one that I made. I'm gonna go ahead and use a scrap piece of paper and trace it, then use that scrap piece and transfer it over to the foam. That way I can do any adjustments on the scrap piece that I need to do, like sizing adjustments or any cutting and things like that, so that way the original stays intact. So I'm just gonna go ahead and trace this, and once it's traced out, I can go ahead and do the adjustments that I wanted to do to make the ab section a little bit longer, so that way it fits the chest a little bit better. So here we are. All right, we got the template transferred over to the scrap piece of paper, and I already did my adjustments. So as you can see, the template here has a smaller chest piece and a smaller lower abdominal muscle. And I made this one larger to my measurements I did earlier, and I made this a bit longer to the measurements I made earlier. So the cool thing we're going to do now is everything is you draw everything as one piece, and then you so I like to do these dotted lines to show what goes underneath a piece. So this is just going to allow me to draw, when I separate these two sections, I'm going to draw this bottom piece onto the foam and then create this top portion here that's going to allow me, it's going to be a little lip so that I can sit the chest piece on top of it. So now I'm going to separate each piece into sections. I'm going to first do, I'm going to do another copy of the chest plate, so that way I can cut this out, trace that onto foam, and then I'll have I'll be able to do the bottom section. So each piece is individual. So you have this entire section here, which I'm going to cut out and then transfer to foam. Then each individual piece will be cut out and transferred to foam, and then that will be built on top of that base layer that I have. So let's get this all transferred to foam, and then I can show you guys how you will heat that up in the oven and put it all together. All right, so the first step is done. We got this is the abdominal plate here that is separated from the chest plate, which I'm about to cut out. And these are the two base sections here that will be transferred over to the foam, and then I'm going to start cutting up the abdominal plate into pieces to separate the individual ab plates and then the rib accoutrements here on the side. So let's start cutting. Kind of sort of the easy part. You don't want to waste foam, so you want to put your template in as best of a corner you can, so that way you can utilize the entire piece of foam. I'm going to put that piece there. Now it makes it a little bit easier if you use safety pins to hold down your template, so that way it doesn't shift. I don't have any safety pins right now, so I'm just going to have to use my hand to hold it in place. Trace around it. Alright, so all the templates except for the rib accoutrements are ready on the foam. So before cutting these out, I'm going to go ahead and turn on the oven and show you guys what I do there, so that way it can heat up while I'm cutting pieces out. Alright, cool. So let's get the oven set to what we want it to be at. Obviously you don't want your foam to burn, but you want it to be able to heat up to mold. So you're going to turn your oven to 255 degrees, and that will allow you to get the correct temperature that you need. This is a fun part. I got a couple people who wondered why I use tin snips. It's because tin snips go through EVA foam just like butter. I use them on Cosplay Melee. I've been using them for the past probably 7 years. This is the same pair of tin snips I've had from the very beginning, and I haven't had to sharpen them or anything. They have stayed perfect. They have like a lifetime warranty or something like that. So it cuts right through EVA foam just like scissors cut paper. So that's how I get my clean lines. You can get clean lines with an X-Acto knife, but your blade always has to be sharp. You don't have to worry about that with the tin snips. It's a whole lot easier to cut off excess. It's a whole lot faster to cut with tin snips than it is to do like a box cutter or an X-Acto knife. This top portion up here where the abs attach to the chest plate doesn't have to be as clean because you're not going to see it. But I'm still going to do it clean. So we're going to heat that up and then form that to our stomach so that it has a nice curve to it. And now I'm going to cut out each of these individual ab pieces and the chest plate. All right, so chest plate is ready to go now. I'm gonna before I start heat forming, I'll cut the ab plates out just so I have them ready to go. But the first part we have to do is get the chest plate heated and shaped, and then the abs heated and shaped, so that way I can sit it on top and tell exactly where it's going to rest properly, so that way I can line up the abdominal muscles correctly. And as you can tell now, it's really flat and lifeless. That doesn't look anything like a superhero chest plate, but with a little bit of Foamsmith magic, we're about to make this look like a muscular superhero chest. Alright, so we're getting ready to heat the chest piece up in the oven. But if you noticed on most of my chest plates, it's got, the muscular rise on it, so you can see that hill and then the valley and then another hill to create the chest. To create this valley, what we need to do first before heating up in the oven is we're going to take our EVA foam on the back. I'm going to use a Sharpie and draw a line that goes right down the center of that piece there, and we're going to cut a undercut out, and we're going to do an undercut out of this piece of foam here. This X-Acto knife is not sharp, so it's a little bit more difficult. So you're cutting at a 45-degree angle because you don't want to cut straight through your foam you're cutting at it. You're cutting at an angle just like this, so that way it creates a V cut in the foam. And then if you do it properly, it should just pull right out and create a nice V cut out of your foam, just like that. Okay, now we can heat it up in the oven. Okay, ready to put stuff in the oven. First thing I'm going to do is set a timer to 2 minutes. Nope, sorry. Let me turn that off. It's going to be 3 minutes and 30 seconds. So 2:55. You constantly want to check your time. Oh, don't want to start it yet. 3:30. And I'm going to put my ab piece in there first. Open up the oven. Put this on the second rack. Close that up. Hit my timer. 3 minutes and 30 seconds. I want to check it around 3 minutes and make sure that it's not getting too hot. You can tell if it's getting too hot if the foam starts to get really malleable and curl. And sometimes that's a good thing. If you want that curl, it actually adds more depth to the foam. But if you leave it in there too long, then it starts to shrink up on you, and you don't want that. Okay, so we got the abdominal plates. See, as I was telling you about how it curls when it heats up. So that adds some more definition to it. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to press it in to my stomach and just give it the curve. It's a little hot. It's not too hot to touch. Obviously, you don't want to do this directly on your skin, but give it that curve of my stomach here, so that way it sits nicely right below my my pectorals. This is where the chest plate's going to sit. So there you go. See that nice definition it now has? And it's shaped to my abs. Cool. So that's ready to go. Let's go ahead and do the chest piece. So for your chest pieces, to get that curvature of the chest muscle, you want to use something like a round bowl, or what I'm going to be using in this instance is a extra cast of my death mask that I have. This little bulb right here creates a perfect little curve for the chest muscle. That's what I used on my Batman armor. So I'm gonna, once the chest piece comes out of the oven, I'm gonna run over here really fast and sculpt each one of those chest muscles using this bulb right here. All right, timer's about to go off in just a moment, and I'm gonna run over here and do the chest plate. Here we go. Okay. Much better. And then what we're going to do is we're going to push that valley that we created. We're going to push it outward to create that little thing there. Let's push that in a little bit more. I want more definition on the chest. There we go. That's much better. Boom. And we got superhero boobies. So you can see that it went from a flat piece to a defined chest piece there. Cool. And now what I'm going to do on the back side, this valley that I've created, I'm going to put a piece of scrap foam in here just to keep it open so that it doesn't want to close on me, because I want to keep that little valley in the front. So as you can see, heating it up and then pushing it against a round object, molding it, allows you to get that curve. If you leave it in there longer and get it more malleable, you can get a much more defined curve to it. But this is all I need for Wolverine here. Okay, so now we got the chest plate. I put that scrap piece of foam on the back of it so it keeps that valley on it. I want to line it up on the abdominal plate so that way I can make a line tracing underneath it, knowing where it's going to begin and end, so that way I can go ahead and put my abdominal plates along it, and I know how far up they can go. So let's go ahead and get the abdominal muscles cut out. The first one I want to do is attach this. I think I want to attach that first. Actually, no, I'm not going to do that yet. Yeah, I'm going to do the abdominal muscles first and get those attached to the ab plate. And then I'm going to attach the chest plate. The abdominal plates are cut out now. And before I heat them up in the oven, I'm going to do a couple things to them. You can see they're cut out a little roughly, so I'm going to go outside, use my grinding bit on the Dremel to create a nice soft curve around each one. And then I'm going to heat it up in the oven. And I'm going to smooth out the edges as well. See, now I've used the Dremel, and I have beveled my edges to give it a little bit more definition. So now I'm going to put this in the oven, and it's going to give it some more of that curve and pop, and it's going to be like ab muscles poking out. So let's go ahead and get that done. Alright, so we got the ab pieces, individual muscles, heated and formed. The cool thing about the ab muscles is you don't have to really do any forming. You put it in the oven for 3 minutes and 30 seconds, or a little bit longer depending on your oven. Just, you got to keep an eye on it. But you just let it heat up, and it gets a natural curve as it expands. And I didn't have to do any forming. It puffs up just a little bit, creates that. It's not flat anymore. It creates that nice curvature. It's like a real abdominal muscle. And the same thing on these other ones. Creates a nice curve. So everything is good to go. Let's go ahead and start attaching ab muscles to the ab plate itself. Alright, to get this attached properly to the template, I want to do a lineup real quick, a real simple mock-up of what it's going to look like. I'm going to take each piece and just sit it where it's supposed to go. Make sure that they're good to go. Yep, everything looks great. So I'm just going to do a basic line with my Sharpie, so that way I know where each piece is going to sit. There we go. Bam. Awesome. Cool. So I can do the first side, get that attached, and then I'll be able to line up the other side properly, you know, based off of the right side that I already have measured out. Okay, so I got all the pieces put together. Everything is put onto the chest plate and to the abdominal muscles. I'm going to do put a few brads in here. I like using these brass book brads to create fake rivets. So I'm going to put some in here. I'm going to mark it with where they're going to go with a Sharpie, and then I'm going to make some brass or some fake rivets on this armor, so that way we can add a little bit more detail. But this is basically almost done, you know, except for the whole painting section. But for this video, I was just showing you guys how to make a chest plate, so it's almost done. So let's go ahead and mark out where we're going to have those brass brads, just normal connection points that you would see on armor. So just some random areas on here, right there, and then right there, and then there, there, and there. Cool. So we're gonna put some brass brads, put some rivets in here. This is gonna really look cool. I mean, it looks cool already as is, but when it's painted and we do the final detailing and weathering on it, it's gonna look absolutely amazing. Gonna get all that battle damage. Obviously, this chest plate is far from done because I still have to do the back plate and the pauldrons, but you know, no chest plate is complete without a insignia. So I went ahead and drew a quick X-Men logo with a backing. So I'm going to cut this out and slap that onto the chest plate, and we will be done with this tutorial. Well, we did it, guys. In the course of a couple hours, we have created a armored chest piece, and you see how the brass brads make it look like it has rivets. I love the way it came out. Can't wait to finish this thing up. And I did the X-Men logo up here on the chest plate. So there you are, guys. This is how you make an EVA foam chest plate, armored chest plate, and get those abdominal muscles. So if you guys have any more questions, feel free to hit me up. Thank you guys for joining me yet again for another video. If you you guys have any other questions or want to know how I did any specific sort of thing, hit me up at facebook.com/xdfet or ebonywarriorstudios.com and email me there. As always, this is Ebony Warrior Studios with blinding speed, master quality, untold savagery.